100 million damage, incredible tank, incredible sustain, good speed, and solid clear. This is a close to perfect build and a contender for my build of the league, although which isn't saying much. My next build might be that too, since I'm going to pick up the Forbidden Right, the new Forbidden Right jewel as well for my next build. But yes, for now, let's talk a little bit about the Trickster. POE and links in the description box below, including time codes. But let's talk a little bit about the actual Trickster, my experience with it, the pros, the cons, and then we'll talk about the gear and the gems and all the good stuff. But yes, this is my very first time playing a Trickster since the rework, and I can definitely see why people like Trickster now, especially after the rework. It has been an incredible experience. Polymath, amazing. The action speed, love that note. My god, it feels so good under the right circumstances. And the overleach has felt really, really good once you deal with all the degen mechanics in the game, which we have. More about that in the gearing section, of course. But yes, the build has been able to do pretty much all the content I wanted to do. It can do Ubers quite easily, especially with a simple flask swap for fizz mitigation to a taste of hate. It can do the most incredible and brutal mapping. As you can see right now, this is a fully juiced VT map. We're talking Sextants, Delirium, Beyond. We're talking 5-6k Wisp juice. On top of course, fully Sextant. Beyond that, beyond the two that I mentioned, fully Scarabed, Wandering Path. And if you know what the VT mapping style is, you know that all the mods are randomized and then super juiced with Wandering Path. So we're dealing with some brutal randomized mods. And there's only one mod we can't deal with, which is the fact that we have a mana cost on our spell, which is necessary due to the Sigil of Power. So we can't really deal with that, except for bringing a mana flask in. And as long as you keep killing, you're fine. But in case you find yourself stuck because you casted a little too many brands, or too many immortal calls, for example, just bring a mana flask. We have the extra bag now as well. So besides those two tiny things, the fizz mitigation and the occasional flask swap, there are pretty much no holes in this character. And it has been an incredible experience. It is indeed Chaos Inoculation Power Charge as well. So it's a pretty basic template as I understand it. Pretty easy to follow, pretty easy to build upon. You can switch out a different brand as well if you want to promote better clear. Storm brand of Indecision I would recommend. Although with this particular league in the Wisps, you know, if you get the right triple buffed Wisps Arch Nemesis combination on a Delirium mob, Storm brand of Indecision might fall a little short on a single target. Other than that though, it has been an incredible experience. I hope you enjoy this build. This is going to be my last video on it, barring any massive changes. But I'm excited to show you the inner workings. And if you do like the builds I make, if you do like the niche preferences I have, make sure to hit the like button. And if you do not like them because you like other stuff like bow builds, like the video as well, let me know. I will see you guys at the gearing section. And here he is in his cheeky glory, my level 97 Trickster. Let's talk a little bit about the gear and the gems that are in it. But it should speak for itself if you are familiar with power charge stacking like characters. We have a well-rolled Void Battery. In it we have a Arcane Surge, Flame Dash, and a Mortal Call. A Mortal Call will be on left click. This will facilitate a permanent uptime on Arcane Surge. For the Helm, we have the Vertex Val Mask, which is very powerful with the high energy shield value and the +1 socketed gems. This allows us to get a level 4 Enlighten. I wish it was a natural level 4 Enlighten, but it is what it is. These are very expensive this league, so be careful. Zealotry, Grace, and Discipline are our auras of choice for the Helm. In terms of the Malachi Loop Shield, which is the power charge stacking shield, make sure you get a good rolled one with as much energy shield as possible, but also preferably with the physical damage from hits taken as chaos damage. This will help tremendously with physical mitigation, which is and continues to be one of our weak spots in this build. In it we have Cast When Stunned, Summon Chaos Golem, which is the tech to get more fizz mitigation. You don't have to think about it, it's just kind of there due to the Cast When Stunned, which is very comfy. But other than that, if you don't think you need it during mapping, for example, you can switch it out for something else if you prefer that. Other than that, Assassin's Mark speaks for itself. Cast it on bosses, cast it on rare, tough mobs, they will die. Chevron's Revelation Moonstone Ring. Bleeding cannot be inflicted. Corruption is mandatory if you want to be able to switch your Pantheon. Because with this and a jewel on the skill tree, we can switch to Burning Ground Immunity, which is very, very lovely. Other than that, the Chevron gives us massive amounts of energy shield and mana regen, which is desperately needed. And I did try to hit defense modifiers with a high roll through the new catalysts that allow you to roll randomized defense mods, or at least catalyst mods on corrupted gear. But yeah, I spent over 20 divines. My best roll was 11 defense. It's been painful. Be careful. And the Precursor Emblem Ring allows us to scale more on our charges. In this case, the increased energy shield per power charge is mandatory, and then just find whatever is good. I happen to stumble upon multi and endurance charge, but I've seen people who actually get like a flat out additional power charge or cast speed, damage scaling, movement speed, more fist damage mitigation as well. It's all possible. Just make sure you at least have the energy shield per power charge at the very least. Regarding the anointment, I was doing some blight, not very important. What is important is the anointment on the Badge of the Brotherhood. Badge of the Brotherhood is fairly important as well because it allows us to actually use our frenzy charges being equal to power charges. And then the anointment allows us to get more brand attachment range, which makes it just feel very good because you don't have to aim as accurately. And plus, you get 30 crit multi. What is not to love, right? The chest is still the rare chest. We refined it a little bit with tailoring orbs now as well. 8% increased explicit defense. Discipline aura, increased effective non-curse aura for more energy shield and just more benefits across the board for our auras. Prefixes are all dedicated to energy shield and evasion when possible. We have an intellect suffix because energy shield. We also have indeed an elemental rest because that's comfy, and attributes percentage to help with more intellect, but also some of the stat requirements we have, because things like strength are very tight. Our sixth link is Penance Brand Dissapation. I missed my corruption, sadly. Energy leech support, because we're always leeching due to overleech. Power charge on crit strike support. We have increased crit damage. This is the flex gem. You can go for an Empower 4 here, which is very, very strong, or maybe even 5 if you have that one for some reason. You can also go with Inspiration if you have too many mana issues. It's a little less damage, but it smooths out the playstyle immensely, which might just be very good for the early stages or if you just want to have a more comfortable time. We also have an Awakened Lightning Pen, giving us access to lightning exposure. Some people prefer it on the gloves. I have a different implicit on the glove, more about that soon. And then also Awakened Added Lightning, which allows us to get the +1, which is just very, very powerful. Speaking of the gloves, though, it's a Sorcerer Glove, highest energy base, I believe. Triple dedicated prefixes, 2 energy shield, almost perfect, so close. Dexterity, because we do need dexterity. That's why we went with a fracture here to confirm that, or to secure that. I tried to Eldritch Craft the intellect there on it, and then of course more attributes for just more stats and more intellect. Now in terms of the implicit, a nerf, very, very powerful, just more damage. And then we take the last 10% that is not converted, because 50% is converted on the base of the gem, 40% on the skill tree, and then 10% remains, and then we are using that here to converting it to lightning damage, is what I supposed to be doing, but I like a little bit of cold to help with chill. It's a defensive move basically, and possibly the occasional freeze under the right circumstances. But otherwise, yeah, just make sure you convert the last 10% somehow, because that way you also don't have to worry about physical reflect, and you can just focus on elemental reflect. In the gloves, we have Frost Shield, increased area of effect, which is mandatory, more coverage for our Sigil of Power and Frost Shield in itself, and then also increased duration, so we don't have to keep spamming it, and we can just focus on moving around in the circle and or outside of it even, if necessary, and spamming, keeping our buffs up, and just, you know, not die, which is very, very comfy. The boots, some of the more powerful aspects of this build: Relic Ash and Patience, running with a max energy shield implicit. Yeah, we don't really care too much about the chaos resistance, obviously, because we're immune, and the cold rest is not really important because we're overcapped. But yeah, other than that, just as much energy shield as we could muster. Max roll on the actual armor itself as well, very comfy. We're running in it Wrath, Guardian's Blessing, meat shield support to keep our minions close to us, as well as Raised Spectre, which is what these minions are. These are the perfect dark marionettes. They also provide Scourge, and when they die, they simply come back, which is very, very comfy. So you can see they're slowly degenning right now, and then they come back, and the buff stays active. Sometimes they die at the same time or desync, and then they do lose the buff. So you have to keep an eye on it, which is why it's on my bar. Other than that, it's just nice because that explosion, as I stated, also debuffs the enemy further. And of course, we have a Mage Blood, which is just a Mage Blood, like nothing really special about that. In terms of replacements for gear, you could just go for like a high rolled chevrons, which will give us more energy shield, which is nice. Don't worry too much about the corruption. Just make sure you have Relicash back for the bleed shenanigans. If you don't have a Mage Blood, Graven's Secret is very, very good. Just get a good rolled one, or if you have a really good corrupted one, energy shield percentage is probably the best corruption you can get. Because as you can see, you get more resistance, more energy shield, you get maximum power charges, and you also get this absorption charge tech, which makes you even more sustainable. And it doesn't actually mess around with your power charges because this Relicash Impatient boot overrides the way that works. Even if you have max power charges, it still considers you to have max, or if max absorption charges, it still considers you to have max power charges, I believe, which is a really powerful combo. The only reason I'm using a Mage Blood is because I happen to drop it out of sheer dumbfounded luck. Otherwise, I'd be using this belt right now. It might even be better overall for damage as a result of the maximum power charges, depending on how the scaling works. But also, if you don't want to craft your chest, because it can be tricky, it's probably just dense fossils, really, or whoa, essence slam and get lucky. You can run something like a Restless Ward or even a Shadow Stitch with like +2 energy shield or +2/+2, which is even more damage. And as you can see, you get a lot of benefit from it. Lots of life, lots of energy shield, massive movement speed. If you run like this, a chest like this, you might even run away from the Quicksilver and then just use maybe an Elemental Flask or something, right? Speaking of the flasks, we are using Oria's End for, well, clear, obviously. For tank, we want to use a Taste of Hate. And if we have the occasional mana issue in the VT mod, we're using any kind of like flask that gives us mana so we can keep casting and get our recovery back through killing. But yeah, I'm mostly mapping right now, so that's Oria's End. And beyond that, it's simply a Quicksilver with cast speed. Of course, a Diamond Flask with elemental resistance. A Jade Flask with Curse. Gives us immunity to curses, which is very comfy, and avoid being shocked. Allows us, with a jewel on the skill tree, to become immune to all elemental ailments. All of these flasks are super juiced and are just wonderful. So that's it for the gear. Let's talk a little about, and the gems, of course. Let's talk a little bit about the Atlas, not the Atlas tree, the skill tree, and we'll go from there. So the skill tree is indeed the typical power charge skill tree with some adjustments, naturally, but it should seem very familiar. So let's start at the beginning. Of course, we are picking up Polymath still, one step ahead into Soul Drinker, very basic stuff. This is also where we get our Overleach from, which is very nice. In terms of the Affliction League mechanic, of course, Primalist, we are still using max mana as an extra maximum energy shield, with crit chance for power charge, crit multi for power charge, and then on the final one we have another crit multi for damage, but also reflected elemental damage cannot be taken. This is why it's so important to make sure you completely convert your Penance Brand into elemental damage. If you don't do Val Temple, you can probably just get another mana to energy shield, but I do, and that's why I need to make sure to cover my bases, no matter what the conditions are, because I don't know what the conditions will be. We're picking up every single energy shield note that we can possibly find: Trickery, Assassination, Resourcefulness, Cold-Hearted Calculation. We then pick up Soul Thief, which gives us energy shield and some kill sustain, like Polymath does. And with all the intellect we are scaling for energy shield, we can also scale evasion rating, which is very, very comfy. Down here we have, of course, the power charge infused with a corrupted blood immunity, cast speed, crit chance, maximum energy shield. It's an okay jewel. It can definitely be improved upon, but I'm not going to complain. Ghost Shroud, the perfect keystone for an evasion energy shield based build. Now, we have Ghost Reaver. Now, our recharge is already disabled due to our Chevron's ring. So Ghost Reaver is just more energy shield leech for free. And we overleech anyway as a result of us being a trickster, being specced into it. So this is just a free awesome point. Ridden in Blood for more energy shield and some much needed strength. We pick up Chaos Inoculation, obviously. Influence with the auras have increased effect mastery. We also have High Voltage, which is incredible because we're shocking people all the time because we're critting and doing lightning damage. On top of that, we are picking up the 40% physical damage converted to lightning damage here, which with the Penance Brand is 90, and then with the glove, 10% is 100. That's how I did it. Of course, Utmost Intellect with Intellect Mastery. We are doing a lot of passives. We are a trickster after all, so this is just perfect synergy. Another wonderful power charge. The Gem Socket will be used for the Militant Faith, elemental damage, and non-cursed auras, obviously. Make sure that if you do buy one, it doesn't brick any other nodes that you are attempting to use, like Instability. The actual keystone turns into Inner Conviction, which is more power charges. Or at least power charges turn into more spell damage, I mean. Speaking of power charges, Disciple of the Forbidden, we also pick up the Damage Charge Mastery, which is just incredible value for this build. We finally get to get some brand stuff at this point. 2 additional brands, some duration, some cooldown, very good. With additional brand attachment range, it really is good quality of life. We also pick up Unnatural Calm for more energy shield, as well as increased energy shield from equipped helm, which is very important because the Vertex has more energy shield than alternatives. Very good value here. We also pick up Arcane Guarding, simply because it gives us more energy shield, which we then can leverage for more crit multi. If you don't like Arcane Guarding, or you don't care too much about having 10k energy shield per size or more than, you can also pick up Arcane Potency a little earlier and take a crit reduction mastery, which is very comfy with the wisps and stuff, which is my next goal, by the way. It's going to be my next few points. In terms of the cluster, it's an elemental, at least lightning damage cluster. We get elemental damage from Prismatic Heart with elemental res, and then also Storm Drinker. It's a more leech and lightning pen. The medium clusters are the same. We're trying to get a lot of strength out of it, followed by some intelligence with brand loyalty and remarkable. Same on the other side. As you can see, strength and all attributes. We have a Watcher's Eye. The increased cast speed while affected by zealotry I would consider to be very valuable. I would have preferred energy shield per enemy hit while affected by discipline on top of a grace. I think the best version, if you needed 2 notable Watcher's Eye, is probably cast speed, zealotry, and grace, attack evade, grace. But alas, this is what I wanted to make sure I can handle VT sustain as well, and it does definitely work out. It has helped tremendously. On the other side, we have that which cannot be taken. We have a triple jewel here, frenzy charge, stacking evasion, area of effect for power charge, which is very comfy quality of life for clear. And then also a little bit more onslaught, which is not as exciting since we have a super juiced onslaught already, so it does not have the typical full value, but you definitely still notice it. Just get whatever is valuable, as long as you get area of effect and some other good stuff that works for your build. We do pick up Sovereignty as well to help with all the sustain and all the aura effects, plus the 8% Herald or aura buff damage scaling. We're also going down here to pick up Runebinder. It's a bit of a workaround by the looks of it, but through Faith and Steel we get some good value, as well as more chaos damage mitigation, or physical damage turning into chaos damage mitigation, which is very comfortable, very similar to our shield implicit, mandatory. And then of course Runesmith, which is just more damage on a single target with additional brands, which is an incredible quality of life on mapping. You can just keep spamming things, which is very good. Runebinder already was mentioned. Yeah, another power charge, another endurance charge, obviously. The gem itself here, Storm Shroud. This with the flask that we have. Avoid being shocked, makes us ailment immune. And then we also pick up Divine Wrath and benefit a lot from the inverting of elemental resistances occasionally. It does work out. And that's pretty much the build. Yes, like I said, my last couple of points are going to go into Arcane Potency for more crit multi and damage, as well as the crit mitigation. Since unlike Poison, who has just crit immunity masteries, which is very, very good. If they're poisoned, they can't crit. We simply have to deal with reducing the amount of crit damage we take on the crit mastery. But that's pretty much the Atlas tree. It should seem very simple if you have played power charge stackers before and just added some brand tech in. Very simple to understand, and I think it has been an incredible success. Thank you all so much for joining me on this Trickster journey, my very first Trickster. Very happy with how it turned out. Definitely going to return back to this Ascendancy in the future. But new things are ahead of us. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night. Take care. And I am out.